everybody, it's Michelle, and if you've been following me recently, you're familiar with my egg-shaped dies. I've been having so much fun with these, and I've done several punch art projects already using these. And I recently held a contest over on my blog for suggestions of new ideas on how to use these egg-shaped dies. I had a lot of fun with that contest, and I may do something similar again very soon, so be on the lookout for that. I apologize if my voice is a little scratchy. I've been sick for a couple of weeks and have just now kind of gotten my voice back, but I was so anxious to get back to crafting and to do some of these contest winner videos. And today we're going to do the suggestion with our egg-shaped dies from HappyBird. She had a couple of suggestions, and I will be doing both of those, and I'm very excited about them. Today we're going to be doing her suggestion of a tag with cardinals on a nest with some holly and Christmas decorations around that. And I just love this tag. I can't wait to get started and show you guys. And I will have HappyBird's second suggestion coming up very soon as well. We had a couple more contest winners that have not yet claimed their prize. The contest winners were to receive a free set of the egg-shaped dies that I was going to send to them, but I never did get a response on those other two winners. I'll be doing their suggestion videos anyway, and I'm excited about doing HappyBird's suggestion today. I have some pieces cut out already with the largest egg in this set. I thought that would be best for this scene that she described. So for this one, HappyBird suggested an egg-shaped tag with cardinals on a nest with some holly and berries surrounding that. I've got a couple of the largest egg cut out here already with watercolor paper, and then I've got just a regular sheet of white cardstock that I'm going to use to create the scene that's going to be the sky behind the birds. And I've got another die set that I'm going to be using to help create the scene that she described, and I'm very excited about that too, and I'll show you guys that when we get to that part. I'm going to do a little bit of ink blending to make a sky, and the only color I'm using is Tumbled Glass, and that's the Tim Holtz Distress ink, and I'm going to try to make a little bit of a gradient from dark to light with that. And I'm working on my glass cutting board. I like to work on that when I'm doing ink blending. And the fun thing about ink blending for skies is that it really doesn't matter if it's kind of blotchy. In fact, I think it looks a little better if it is. I think it looks more like a sky if it is a little blotchy. I'm going to try to get it a little darker toward the bottom, and I'm just going to hold my egg die up to that and see if I've got a large enough area and if I like the look that it's got going on so far. I really like that right there, but I'm going to bring that dark down just a little further, and I like that right there, so I'm going to go ahead and tape that in place where I want it. And I think I like it right there. It's sort of lighter toward the top and darker toward the bottom. And I'm going to go ahead and take that over to my Cuttlebug and cut that out. And there is our little egg-shaped sky tag. And I'm going to want to adhere all these together. I've got one of regular cardstock so I could do my ink blending, and then two in the watercolor paper so that I could layer those up and get a thick, sturdy tag. But before I glue those together, I want to do my stamping, and I'm going to bring in my Misty to help me with my stamping. And you guys, believe the warning when you read it on your Misty. that these are strong magnets, and if they pull each other and clang together, they'll break. They really will. It happened to mine, so I'm going to have to order maybe one of those bar magnets for it. In the meantime, I'm just going to use one of my magnets here, maybe just a piece. Try not to scratch my cardstock. And again, I'm using my Hero Arts Celebrate Every Day stamp set. And I'm going to stamp Merry Christmas. And I'm going to come up kind of high on my tag so that I can leave room for my nest and cardinals and everything else that I want to do on there. And get that as straight as I can. But instead of stamping with ink, I want to heat emboss this. I've got some new embossing powder, and I think it's just beautiful. And this is the hot chocolate color of the Nouveau embossing powder. So I put that in my MISTI, close the door on that, and my door picks it up just like an acrylic block. And now I can take my anti-static powder tool and just dust the surface of my tag so that none of that embossing powder gets anywhere except where I stamp. And then I'm going to ink up my stamp with Versamark ink, which is just a clear sticky ink for my embossing powder to stick to. And I'm going to ink up my Merry Christmas with that. And close the door and rub that, and that will stamp in that sticky ink. And then shake on my embossing powder. You should take this out of the MISTI first. I should have done that already. And I'm bringing in a piece of regular printer paper. Just to shake that excess off onto, and then I can dump that all back into the bottle so I don't have any waste. And I really love embossing powder. I'm going to bring in my heat tool and let that heat up for a few seconds. And then just melt that embossing powder. And a little bit from behind. And I just love the results that that gives. I hope you guys can see that glossy, sort of a metallic finish on this one that gives. I think that is just beautiful. Okay, now I can adhere all my layers together. And I'm just using my Craft Bond glue stick for that. I find this works better than a liquid glue or something because it's not as wet. So we're not going to have to worry about it getting the paper wet and warping it. And it also is not going to take very long to dry. So I'm going to put my two watercolor paper layers together. And then my ink blended sky scene on the front of that. And now we've got a nice, thick, heavy-duty tag. And I'm going to move on and go ahead and start working on my little bird's nest down here. If you want to, you can go ahead and heat emboss to and from on the back or handwrite it in, but I believe I would emboss it with the same hot chocolate embossing powder that I did the Merry Christmas with. I think that would be beautiful. So now I'm going to show you guys the other set that I'm going to be using to complete this. And here is the die set that I'm using in addition to my egg shapes. This is sort of a twig wreath die, and then we've got some berries, a bow, and cardinals to go with that. I'm not using the berries and the bow today. I'm just using the twig wreath, and I cut that out of that light, soft sort of craft color cardstock that I got at Joann a while back. And I cut out 2 of the cardinals, one in that same craft color and one in red. Because as you may know, with cardinals the males are red and the females are sort of this tan color with a little bit of a reddish hint to some of them. So I'm going to show you what I did. I've got a couple more that I'm going to be using off to the side, but I went ahead and cut these also just to show you guys how I did it, but the other ones have already dried, so we won't have to wait on the dry time. And all I did with those was to take a couple of colored pencils, a red and a black, and on the male cardinal I did a little bit of black colored pencil. And these are my Arteza watercolor pencils. So I did kind of blend it out with water a little bit afterwards, but I just did a little bit of black up on the peak of his sort of mohawk kind of hairdo there. And just a little curve of black surrounding where his beak would be. A couple of streaks to imply a wing, and a few on his tail feathers. And I don't know if you guys can see, and it's nothing elaborate, just a few little streaks to imply where those feathers and wings are, just to give it a little bit of definition. I did the same thing on the female, but with a little red on the top of her head where her wing would be, and her tail feathers, and then just the slightest amount of black blending in with all those red areas, and just the black around her beak as well. Then I just took a black pen and put a dot for an eye on each of them. I held them with my tweezers and took my orange paint pen and just touched a little bit onto the beak and let all of that dry. I did blend out the colored pencil markings with a little bit of water with my water brushes, and this is the result, and they have been off to the side drying. Here's the female one. I hope you guys can see the detail on that. It's, like I said, nothing too elaborate. Just a little bit to imply those wings and where the different colors are on the birds. And here is the male. And I think it's just enough detail to help define those a little bit. So now I'm going to do some ink blending on my wreath here. And then we're going to turn this wreath into a nest. I'm using my Memento Rich Cocoa ink and just a little sponge pouncer from Walmart just to rub in there. And I just want some darks and lights just to give a little bit of shading definition to these twigs. It is a little delicate, so you have to be careful. And now all I'm going to do is cut this into quarters. Just pick a spot and go straight across, and then cut each of those in half again. And we can layer those up and create a nest. And I think this is a lot of fun. I'm going to use my tweezers and some art glitter glue. You can use something like the Zig glue pen, which I really do like, but when you're applying it to as many places as all these little branches on this die cut here, I find that sometimes it dries a little too fast and you can't go over all of it in time. And right here in the center, I'm not going to put any glue on those just yet, because I'm going to tuck some little eggs into there, and I don't want it to be stuck down. And you don't have to place it on there any way in particular, because we're going to kind of offset them a little bit anyway to make it look like a sort of tangled up nest. Again, leaving some in the middle without the glue. I'm going to offset that a little bit to the left. So then my next one, I'll offset a little bit to the right. Put a little glue on our fourth one. Let me wipe that away in the middle. Forgot about my eggs. Now I'm going to sort of center this one again. And then we've got a very full nest. I think I'll go ahead and turn this over and cut all those even with the edge of my egg shape. And I think it's coming right along, and it's looking so good. Okay, so for our eggs, I'm using a little bit of a cream colored speckled cardstock. I don't know if you guys can see the speckles. And this just came in a scrap pack that I bought from Walmart. And I'm using my little 1/4 inch oval hand punch, and this is by Fiskars. I bought this on eBay, and it was used, which I didn't realize when I bought it. So it was sort of a only one in stock type of deal. But I will try to find this for you guys if I can find that online and leave you guys a link, because I think it is a lot of fun for a lot of things. And for one, I think the ovals are really good for eyes when you're creating punch art characters. So I just punched out 3 of those. Well, there was another one in there, looks like from last time. I'm just going to use 3 today of those. Ink up my edges just slightly with what's still on my little sponge. Just enough to maybe define that edge. And then I can get each of those with my tweezers. Put a little dot of glue on the back of each one and just tuck them in to the nest. So there are 3 little eggs in the nest, and I'm going to pop the Cardinals up on some foam tape. I'm just going to use one of my little squares here from my Dollar Tree mounting tape. Whoops, that went flying. So I'm using about 1/4 of a foam square on each one. Maybe a little less. Try to trim it down so that it doesn't stick out. That's good. Let's see if I can trim up the corners on this one a little bit. And I'm going to use my tweezers again to help me place those. And put them on the nest so that they're facing each other, facing the eggs. And how cute is that? I think that is just adorable. And I want to put a little bit of pine greenery in around those eggs. And I've got sort of a dark green cardstock scrap here and this sort of muddled green. And I'm going to use my Martha Stewart branch punch. And I'm not sure if they still sell the Martha Stewart branch punch, but they have these that look just like this same pine sort of branch in other brands if you can't find the Martha Stewart. And I found some areas where I could get a couple of those. So I'm just going to get a couple of the dark ones and tuck a little bit of greenery in around the bottom of those eggs just so that we can see some evergreen. And I'm actually going to cut those down. Just a couple of little sprigs of the dark green. And we'll see how we can work that in there. Again, just like the twigs for the nest, it doesn't have to be anything precise. It's just a nest. So a little cluttered is going to be okay. And I'm just putting a few right below those eggs. And I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on top of here. Put a couple of my darker branches. Just one more little piece of the light green on the top. So now I'm going to take my darker green and my little holly leaf punch and just punch out a couple of those. I'm going to try to get in between these little areas here so that I use as much of that as I possibly can. I like to get a lot out of my scraps. Well, my camera stopped recording, so I'm not sure how much I got of that last little bit, but I punched out a couple of holly leaves from my dark green cardstock with my little holly leaf punch here. And I think that is an EK Success punch, but it's very, very old. And I just added a couple of those around the top corner of my little Merry Christmas sentiment there. And I'm going to put one single red rhinestone, and I've got some sticky back ones here by Jolie's Boutique. that I got from the scrapbooking aisle. I'm just going to stick that right on, and it is coming right along. We need to punch a hole in the top to run our ribbon through, and I'm going to go ahead and do that with a 1/4 inch round hole punch. And I have to squeeze very hard to get through all of those layers, but we do have a nice sturdy tag. So now we have to put our ribbon through there. And when I was making this with the nest and the craft color with the female cardinal and everything, I considered putting this ribbon here on there. It's a nice sort of rustic look, I guess, but then kind of halfway through getting that on there, I thought, you know what? This was a contest suggestion from HappyBird's. So I thought, nope, if you guys know HappyBird's channel, you know that it's going to be glittery and sparkly and blingy. So I thought to keep it true to HappyBird style, we would go a little glittery and not use that rustic ribbon. So I found some that was glittery here. It's a sheer glitter ribbon. It's a wired ribbon, but I'm just going to go ahead and pull the wire out. And I just cut a length of it here. I'm not sure about how much that is, but I'll check it on my mat here. Looks like about 16 inches. And then I'm just going to get my chain nose pliers that I use in beading and just pull that wire right out. Pull the other one out, and then I just have a soft ribbon that I can put on my tag, and it's sheer and it's glittery. So I'm going to put that through, and then after I did that, I thought, well, it's still not quite sparkly enough. We've got a glittery ribbon and we've got one rhinestone. So I decided to come back in with my Wink of Stella glitter pen, and I don't know why that inner part keeps coming out. So I decided to take that over some of the things on the card and add some more sparkle. So I'm going to sparkle up my holly leaves, and I'm going to sparkle the eggs, and I'm going to sparkle the cardinals. That way it's a little bit true to HappyBird's style. I know that if she were doing this tag, there would be much more glitter involved, and she would just make it so blingy and beautiful. But I'm going to stop right there, I think. And I think that is a beautiful Christmas tag. And I just love the sparkle. And I love the sparkly ribbon. So I'm glad I decided to go that way. I think this is an absolutely gorgeous idea and a wonderful use for these egg-shaped dies. And I want to thank HappyBird again for her suggestion and congratulate her on winning. And I think it turned out beautifully. So you guys be sure to leave a comment below and let me know what you think of HappyBird's idea for the egg-shaped tag. I think it turned out beautiful, and thanks again to HappyBird for the suggestion. I think it's a beautiful Christmas tag, and I think it's a beautiful idea. So everyone be sure to go over and subscribe to HappyBird's channel if you aren't already. I'll have a link to that in the description below. Also be sure to click subscribe on my channel if you haven't already, and click the bell next to that so that you'll get notifications whenever I upload a new video. give me a like over on my Facebook page, and be sure to join our Facebook group, Crafty Minds. You can share your crafts over there with us as well and get inspiration from a lot of wonderful crafters that are already over there. We'd love to have you join. Also follow me on Pinterest and Instagram, and don't forget to visit my blog. I'll put all the links in the description below, so be sure and check them out. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.